Hi there, I'm Lewis Foster, a journalist up here in the Manx Radio newsroom, and thank you for choosing this episode of the Manx Radio newscast. Joanna Simpson grew up on the Isle of Man, was educated at the Buchan School, and is said to have been a well-loved member of the Manx community. In 2010, now 46 and living in Berkshire, she was killed by her ex-husband Robert Brown. A court at the time heard how he killed her in her home using a clawhammer and within earshot of their two children, aged 9 and 10. He buried her body in a pre-dug grave in Windsor Great Park before confessing to police the following day. The former pilot, now aged 59, was found not guilty of murder after a jury was told the couple's divorce proceedings had put him under great stress. He was sentenced to 24 years for manslaughter and a further 2 years for an offence of obstructing a coroner. He was due to be freed next month after serving just half of his sentence, but today we've heard how, with just a few weeks to go, his automatic release has been blocked by the UK government. It's what Joanna's mum and Manx resident Diana Parks, alongside her family, have spent a long time campaigning for. I spoke with Diana this morning about what it was like hearing Brown's release had been stalled.
Well, we were with the Justice Secretary. I was virtual with my grandchildren and my son, and Hetty Barkworth-Nanton. She was actually at the MOJ offices, and he said, first thing he said is, I'm not going to mess about. I am not allowing Robert Brown to have automatic release from prison next month. So, I mean, it was what we'd been praying for, hoping for, but somehow when you receive that news, you're, wow, stunned, I think, absolutely stunned that all this hard work, this emotionally exhausting work that we've been doing with the campaign has really passed the first level, the most important level, that the Justice Secretary blocking his automatic release.
You say you hoped and prayed for this. Did you expect it at all, or did you really not know?
Well, it was really the law that allowed this to happen, the change of law, 2022. So thank goodness for that. And that was in the days of Sir Robert Buckland. So we're just so grateful. I mean, Alex Chalk had said to us earlier when we saw him in May, I went in person then, that he then said that he had to be seen to be doing it properly and carefully because, you know, it's so brand new, this law, and we didn't quite fit into it. But obviously the crime was so horrendous and the campaign has been so good. And really, I just want to thank the media, the public, everybody who got behind us. It's just been amazing. I mean, I've had people from America telling me that in the States he would have been on death row. You know, it's just unbelievable how people have come behind us for this heinous crime and the travesty of the trial and the unbelievable verdict.
And you rightly said, of course, the next step is going before that parole board. How are you feeling looking ahead to that?
Well, we've asked if we can be there, and we gather that we can. We don't know when that's going to be, but I expect that Brown will put in a judicial review because he won't accept that he's got to stay in jail, I'm sure. And so, you know, we just hope it'll be as long as possible before the parole board see him. Just give him longer in jail, you know. That's the most important thing. Keep him in prison, safe away from everybody, because Robert Brown has to win, and nobody will be safe unless he's kept locked up. No woman that he may start a new relationship with, none of Joe's friends. He'll blame everybody but himself for what he did, and our family as well, my son and his family and my grandchildren. We've put up cameras around the house, we've put up lights around the house, you know, waiting for his release next month. Just even though we'd hoped the Isle of Man would be an exclusion zone, which we were told it would be, I mean, it's quite easy, isn't it, to probably sneak in a boat into a quiet cove or something. Who knows? He's a very clever man. And the thought that he could be released the week beginning November the 6th, when he's regarded as a critical public protection case, when he hasn't been allowed to go into an open prison, he is still in a Category C prison. He could still come out. It is quite frightening. And when you read Justin Russell's annual statement and report about the probation service, that really it's not as it should be. There's only one probation unit that is fit for purpose. 15 were inadequate. So it doesn't give you much hope that the probation board can really keep a check on him. For 13 years he will be on licence. I mean, it's an amazing time.
You mentioned about that exclusion zone around the Isle of Man. Have you been in touch with the authorities here, the Department of Home Affairs perhaps, about what can be done to offer your family some protection and allay some of those fears that you may have?
This has been left by the people who know what they're doing, not by me. I haven't had any part in that. I've just said that it would be wonderful if the Isle of Man could be an exclusion zone, and was told by probation in the UK that yes, it could. And also, Lewis, one of the strangest things is that you're always the victim, that everything is for the defendant. He can come out of prison, or could. We cannot have a photograph of him, so we cannot keep the photograph. We can be shown it by a policeman and then it whizzed away. We cannot be told where he is going to live. He knows exactly what we look like because we've been so much campaigning. We only people he doesn't know what they look like are the children, because we've safeguarded them against having any photographs taken when we've done anything in public. The children have been kept away from me in particular, and to safeguard their appearance. And yet we could innocently walk into an area where he was, because we don't know where he'll be, and bump into him. And yet we're telling him where we are by creating these exclusion zones around the country, where Joe's friends who worry about their life, the revenge that he will want to take on them, because he'll blame everybody but himself for what he did to Joe.
And Diana, no one will blame you, as you say, for saying that it is quite a frightening situation and prospect to have hanging over you looking to the future. I wonder how has it been for the grandchildren, the wider family as well, during this time where these issues have been brought back up and this deadline's being approached?
Well, obviously, we've all been incredibly concerned and worried. We've tried not to let it take over our lives, but it is pretty emotionally exhausting. And obviously, the children never, ever want to see him again. I mean, how he could have killed my daughter in front of the children. Katie sat on my knee and said, "Granny, I could hear the bang, bang, bang," as he hit Mum on the head 14 times with a clawhammer. I mean, it's incredible. They've been to school here, both of them. They've lived with me for the past 13 years, well, nearly 13 years in November. And they have been to school here. They've gone to university. They've both got jobs, and they are remarkable people.
A credit to yourself, I'm sure, Diana. And you set up the Joanna Simpson Foundation in her memory, in your daughter's memory. How has the campaigning with that been going, and work to help children on the island impacted by domestic violence?
We set up the foundation in 2014 in memory of Joe, because we just didn't want Joe to be forgotten. We needed to do something, in her memory. So we set up the foundation, which was to help support and protect children who have been in a domestic abuse situation or suffered from domestic homicide. There was absolutely nothing, no charity in that era that did this kind of work. So that was really important to us. We set up as an English charity, and now we're also English and Manx charity. And now we fund the salary of a full-time domestic abuse worker at the Children's Centre. and she is doing a wonderful job. There are so many families on the island that need help. I mean, sadly, Lewis, in the time when my daughter was killed in 2010, nobody discussed domestic abuse. Nobody talked about it. It was swept under the carpet. And thank goodness, over the past years, everybody talks about domestic abuse now. And in fact, when I was very fortunate to meet the Duchess of Cornwall, who told me that it was due to our case that she wanted to get involved with domestic violence and lift the taboo about this awful subject, where, as she said, it definitely happened in all walks of life. It was such an honour to have her say that it was our case that had made her want to do this. And she has been a tremendous support to us. So, yes, hopefully we're still continuing to carry on with our fundraising to support the domestic abuse worker at the Children's Centre. And in fact, we've supported Winston's Wish in the UK, which is a child bereavement charity, and also the Anna Freud Centre, which takes care of children too. And we've given money to refugees as well. So we're doing some good work.
And Diana, I don't want to keep you too long because you've been saying how overwhelming it's been, the attention you've had in the last 12 hours or so. But I just wanted to end. Can I ask you to tell us a bit about Joanna herself and some of your memories of her and her character?
Well, Jo was brought up on the island, and she went to the Buchan School, and she has so many friends there who have told me how wonderful things about Jo, how she was so very much liked at school, and she was a prefect, and she was glamorous, she was funny, she was witty, she was a good cook. She used to do a lot of rallying on the island as navigator with Simon Kirkpatrick, and she entered into Manx life. She loved horse riding, and she went to university in Bath. She then became a marketing manager for Dell, European marketing manager for Dell, worked for ICL. And then when the children came along, she in fact started a B&B, and which was really, really successful. And she was in the throes of all that going on when he brutally killed her. When he killed my daughter in front of the children, he gave no thought to their welfare whatsoever. None. What would happen to them? And in fact, he pulled out the CCTV, he pulled out the telephone cord, and if the children hadn't seen him lifting my daughter's body into the back of the car, I reckon he would have driven off without telling the children anything, just left, closed the door. And we were told by the police that nobody would have ever found Jo because she was buried in such a remote corner of Windsor Great Park. He was going to fly the next morning to Lagos. And after he returned to his girlfriend's house at 5 o'clock in the morning, she said, "You are too tired. You're not going to fly anywhere this morning." And after killing Jo, because he saw that the children had seen what he'd done, he put the children into the same car that he had their mother's body, and he drove them to his girlfriend's house. And my grandson asked, "Are you going to take Mum to hospital?" And he never replied.